Your dead family member isn't coming back as a ghost, and here's the spiritual reason why. You've been waiting, watching for signs, hoping for some message, some proof they're still around. Maybe you felt their presence, heard their voice, or seen shadows that looked like them. But here's what will shock you about why they haven't returned. They can't. Not because they don't love you, but because of spiritual laws that prevent souls from becoming earthbound spirits after a specific transition period ends. Right now, millions of people are desperately seeking contact with deceased loved ones, not understanding that what they're looking for is spiritually impossible, and what they're actually experiencing isn't what they think it is. The truth about why the dead don't return as ghosts will change everything you believe about death and the afterlife. This story doesn't begin with modern ghost hunters or paranormal investigators. It begins 1,400 years ago with teachings that explain exactly why souls can't become the wandering spirits people desperately hope to encounter. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because what you're about to learn will end your search for ghost encounters forever and show you what's really happening instead. Sarah Mitchell has been looking for her father's ghost for 3 years. Every night, she sits in his favorite chair, speaking to empty air. She's bought recording equipment to catch electronic voice phenomena. She's hired mediums, visited his grave at midnight, and even tried seances with friends. Nothing. No contact, no signs, no ghost. Sarah interprets this silence as abandonment. Maybe her father doesn't care enough to visit. Maybe he's angry about something from their relationship. Maybe death really is the end, and everything she believed about spirits was wrong. But Islamic sources reveal why Sarah's search is fundamentally impossible. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, explained the precise timeline of soul departure. When a person dies, his soul is taken up to the heavens, but it returns to earth and remains connected to the deceased's body for 40 days. After those 40 days, the soul moves to an intermediate realm where it waits for the day of judgment. This isn't punishment or abandonment. It's divine mercy protecting souls from remaining trapped between worlds and protecting the living from spiritual deception. Sarah's father can't return as a ghost because his soul completed its earthly transition months ago. During those first 40 days after death, souls maintain connection to the earthly realm. They can perceive their family's prayers, witness funeral preparations, and experience either comfort or distress based on how the living treat their memory. But this isn't the same as being a ghost that can interact with the physical world. Even during the 40-day period, souls don't manipulate objects, appear visibly to most people, or communicate through electronic devices. They observe and perceive, but they don't haunt in the way movies and ghost stories suggest. After day 40, even this limited earthly connection ends. Islamic scholar Ibn al-Qayyim documented extensive research on soul states after death. According to authentic sources, souls transition to barzakh, where they experience either comfort or punishment based on their earthly deeds, but they no longer interact with the physical world. This is why Sarah's father's ghost never appeared, because he never became one. His soul followed the natural spiritual progression. 40 days of earthly connection, then movement to the intermediate realm where righteous souls find peace and preparation for eventual resurrection. The silence Sarah interprets as abandonment is actually evidence of her father's successful spiritual transition. But if souls don't become ghosts after the 40-day period, what explains the experiences millions of people report? The shadowy figures, the familiar voices, the sense of presence that feels so real? Islamic sources provide disturbing answers. The experiences people interpret as contact with deceased loved ones often fall into several categories, none of which involve actual souls of the deceased. First, there are psychological phenomena. Grief creates powerful hallucinations. The bereaved brain, desperate for comfort, generates sensory experiences that feel completely real. You hear your mother's voice calling your name because your mind is trying to ease the pain of loss. Dr. Amanda Richardson, who studies grief-related hallucinations, found that over 80% of bereaved individuals experience some form of sensory contact with deceased loved ones within the first year. The brain creates these experiences as a coping mechanism, she explains. They feel absolutely real to the person experiencing them, but they're generated internally, not externally. These aren't spiritual encounters. They're the mind's attempt to maintain connection with the deceased. But psychological explanations don't account for all reported ghost encounters, especially those involving multiple witnesses or physical phenomena. This brings us to the second category, jinn interference. Islamic teachings reveal that jinn, invisible beings created from smokeless fire, can perceive human emotions and exploit grief for their own purposes. When people desperately seek contact with deceased relatives, they create spiritual vulnerabilities that jinn can exploit. These beings can mimic human voices, manipulate objects, and even appear in familiar forms. What people interpret as their deceased grandmother's spirit might actually be a jinn pretending to be her. The Prophet, peace be upon him, warned about this phenomenon. When you hear the call of the muezzin, the devils run away. When the call is finished, they come back. Jinn are opportunistic. They target people in vulnerable emotional states, offering false comfort through deceptive spiritual experiences. This is why Islamic tradition strongly discourages attempts to contact the dead. You're not reaching your loved ones, you're inviting spiritual deception. Sarah's 3-year quest for her father's ghost has actually made her a target for jinn interference. Her emotional vulnerability, combined with her active seeking of supernatural contact, creates ideal conditions for deceptive spiritual experiences. If she ever does encounter something that seems like her father's spirit, it won't actually be him. The third category involves environmental and natural phenomena that people misinterpret as spiritual activity. Houses settle, creating unexplained sounds. Electromagnetic fields from appliances cause unusual sensations. Changes in air pressure create feelings of presence. Trick of light casts shadows that look human. People grieving for deceased loved ones interpret these normal occurrences as supernatural visitations. But the combination of psychological need, potential jinn interference, and misinterpreted natural phenomena creates a perfect storm of false ghost encounters. This is why ghost hunting equipment never captures genuine spirits. There are no earthbound souls to detect. Electronic devices that claim to communicate with the dead are picking up electromagnetic interference, radio signals, or random noise that desperate people interpret as meaningful messages. The voices in the static aren't your deceased relatives. They're electronic artifacts filtered through wishful thinking. This understanding brings both relief and sadness. Relief because it means your deceased loved ones aren't trapped as earthbound spirits, suffering in some liminal space between life and death. Sadness because it means the contact you've been seeking is impossible. But Islamic teachings offer something better than ghost encounters: certainty about where your loved ones actually are. If they lived righteously, their souls are experiencing comfort in barzakh, free from earthly pain and limitation. They're not wandering your house trying to communicate. They're not trapped between worlds. They're not struggling to reach you through electronic interference. They've moved on to the next stage of existence, where they await reunion with you in the afterlife. This knowledge should transform how you process grief and remember deceased loved ones. Instead of seeking impossible ghost encounters, Islamic tradition encourages actions that actually benefit departed souls. Prayers for their forgiveness, charity given in their name, maintaining good relationships with people they loved. These actions reach souls in barzakh, bringing them comfort during their intermediate existence. The Prophet, peace be upon him, revealed, "When you pray for the deceased, angels carry your supplications directly to their soul." This is real spiritual connection. Not ghost hunting, but prayer and good deeds that actually impact your loved one's afterlife experience. Sarah's father doesn't need to return as a ghost to maintain connection with his daughter. The prayers she offers for him, the charity she gives in his memory, the kindness she shows to others in his honor, these actions create genuine spiritual bonds that transcend death. But she'll never discover this connection if she remains focused on seeking impossible ghost encounters. The obsession with contacting the dead often prevents people from engaging in the spiritual practices that actually honor and help their deceased loved ones. You're seeking connection in the wrong realm, using methods that can't work with beings who've moved beyond earthly interaction. This also explains why different cultures have such varied ghost stories and supernatural beliefs. If souls actually became earthbound spirits, the experiences would be consistent across all societies. Instead, ghost encounters reflect local folklore, cultural expectations, and religious backgrounds, because they're generated by human psychology combined with spiritual deception. American ghost hunters report different phenomena than Japanese spiritual investigators. European haunting accounts differ from African ancestral visitation stories. If these were actual souls of the deceased, the experiences would be universal rather than culturally specific. The variation proves that what people interpret as ghost encounters are actually combinations of psychological phenomena, spiritual interference, and cultural conditioning. Your deceased relatives aren't behaving differently in death based on which country they're from. They're all following the same spiritual laws. After the 40-day earthly connection period, all souls move to Barzakh, regardless of their cultural background or family beliefs about ghosts. The spiritual realm operates according to divine laws, not human expectations or cultural traditions. This understanding has practical implications for how you should process grief and remember deceased loved ones. Stop seeking impossible ghost encounters that will either never happen or will expose you to spiritual deception. Instead, engage in activities that actually connect you with your deceased loved ones' souls. Regular prayers for their forgiveness, charity given in their name, reading Quran with intention to benefit them. These actions create real spiritual bridges that reach souls in their actual location, Barzakh, rather than seeking them in places they can't be. The energy you've been investing in ghost hunting equipment, seances, and paranormal investigations could be redirected towards spiritual practices that actually benefit both you and your deceased loved ones. Your father, mother, spouse, or child doesn't need to return as a ghost to maintain connection with you. That connection exists through prayer, through living according to values they taught you, through treating others with kindness they would have appreciated, through giving charity that benefits their soul's condition in the afterlife. This is deeper, more meaningful connection than any ghost encounter could provide. It's also safer connection. Seeking contact with the dead through supernatural means opens you to spiritual deception and psychological manipulation. But prayer, charity, and righteous living create protected spiritual connection that benefits both you and your deceased loved ones. The silence you've been interpreting as abandonment is actually evidence that your loved ones have successfully transitioned to their next stage of existence. They're not ignoring you, they're beyond the realm where earthly communication is possible. This should bring comfort rather than sadness. It means they're not trapped, not suffering, not struggling to reach you through electronic interference or paranormal manifestations. They've moved on to whatever rewards or corrections their earthly lives have earned them. For righteous souls, this means peace, comfort, and preparation for eventual reunion in paradise. For souls that need spiritual correction, it means whatever purification process their condition requires. Either way, they're not available for ghost encounters because they're engaged in their proper spiritual development. The best way to honor their memory and maintain connection is through actions that support their spiritual journey rather than attempting to pull them back into earthly interaction. Your prayers reach them in Barzakh. Your charity benefits their spiritual condition. Your righteous living honors their memory. These create genuine spiritual connection without the risks associated with seeking supernatural contact. This is why your dead family member's ghost never returned, because they're not supposed to. They're following spiritual laws that protect both them and you from the complications of remaining connected to the earthly realm after death. The silence is mercy, not abandonment. Understanding this can transform your grief from desperate seeking of impossible contact into productive spiritual practice that actually benefits your deceased loved ones. Instead of waiting for ghosts that will never come, Engage in prayers and righteous deeds that reach souls where they actually are. This is the Islamic teaching that explains why ghost hunting always fails, but prayer and charity always succeed in creating connection with the deceased. Your loved ones haven't abandoned you. They've graduated to their next stage of existence. Honor that progression rather than trying to prevent it through supernatural seeking that can only lead to deception and spiritual harm. If this opens your eyes, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We share spiritual truths you won't find anywhere else. Don't let the algorithm decide if you see our next video. Your spiritual knowledge is too important. Share this with someone who needs it. It could change their life.